Eve. Every Tuesday night feels like Christmas Eve. Living between Wednesdays.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and a little bit earlier than normal, but today I'm joined by Barney Smith, and we're going to talk about the new comic, Dad Jokes. But before we get into all that, Barney, for the folks on my channel who maybe never heard your name, never seen your face, who is Barney Smith?
Well, my first question is, where have you all been living under a rock or something? Because I am famous in my hometown. Everybody in Groton, Vermont knows me. I don't know why anybody else doesn't. So do you want the long or short version? Okay, so
Go long.
Go long. Okay, we'll go far. Go far. All right. So long story. I'll give you the abbreviated long version. So I got an art degree in 1998. Then I went to join the Peace Corps. I was in the Peace Corps for 4 years, and in Niger, West Africa. Then after that, I got my grad degree in international education. But then I decided to keep working overseas. So then I worked in Pakistan. Doing relief work. Then after that, I was in the Philippines doing relief work. Then after that, I was in South Sudan during their independence movement. And then after that, I was in Zimbabwe during a cholera outbreak. After that, I was in Uganda working in an HIV clinic. Then after that, I was in Libya during the revolution fixing ambulances. And then after that, I went to Nigeria and I worked in an urban maternity healthcare clinic. And that's where I met my wife. And then I decided, you know what? Vermont is like the Shire. That's a good place to grow up and end up. So living out of a suitcase for 15 years was enough for me. So I married my wife. My wife is actually from Nigeria. And I always like to make this joke, Konrad, is that you guys if you have that in Canada, like in the United States, we have the 90-Day Fiancé show.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That. Yeah. So I laugh at that because my wife and I dated for 30 days before we got married. Because here's the thing, Konrad, my wife is a Nigerian runway model, and I'm a goofy, overweight cartoonist, and so it is like I married up. I married up wicked. So like I wanted to make sure I was able to, before she found out how much of a goofball I was, I had to really. And so we are like the epitome of the 90s like sitcom. The goofy overweight guy and then married to like the tall beautiful woman, and people like look. And like I keep asking, like I said, like, man, you are such a sucker. Why did you marry me? And it's like, and it shows. It's like the whole line from Who Framed Roger Rabbit is just like, what do you find in him? She makes me laugh. And that, you know what? Age, people get old, people get wrinkled, but you know what? Humor never dies. And so that's the thing. You know what? For anybody out there who's looking for love, you know what? Find someone who makes you laugh. That is the key to a long, healthy marriage, is make your partner laugh. Because if you can do that, it's going to last. The marriage is going to last. So that's basically what I did. So fast forward 11 years later, we got 3 kids, and still doing great. And so based off of that, we were able to, and I made a comic book about my relationship. It's called Lion and Dove. It's like the continuous saga of intercultural marriage. So, and it is. Yeah, so it's based off of, it's kind of a sitcom-ish thing on that. There you go, right there. Yeah. Yeah. So I made that. It's a really fun. It's basically feels as though it's like a it's a sitcom. It's basically a version like a 90s sitcom that you can check out and read, and that's fun. And that's where I got to where I am today. So yeah, that's basically how the history of my pieces of my previous works that I put together. But I mean, you're saying, you're probably thinking here, Konrad, well, Barney, we want to talk about dad jokes. I'm like, all right, sorry, Konrad. Okay, let's talk about dad jokes.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So I actually produced a book called Dad Jokes. And I made this. I made this back last year, about a year and a half, about 18 months or so ago.
Okay.
And so basically, everybody had a COVID project.
Mhm.
So Konrad, somebody who also has podcasts, I'm going to make it super easy for you to. There's nothing worse than having a guest on, and then you just have to like pull questions out of them. You're like, well, what happened next? Oh, then it was Sunday. What else? Come on, help me out here. Oh man, those guests, man. I'm never gonna name names, but you can watch those videos, and you're watching the people like, and so yeah. I promise you, Konrad, you never have to pull anything out. You'll have to tell me to be quiet, but that's about it. And
that's the best part.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get this game off my shelf, and I'll show you something. No kidding. Yeah. So basically what I did is that, so it was, the year 2020 was really raw. I mean, you had COVID, we had here in the United States, we had an election season. It was so easy to get on a fight on the internet. Like you could actually, so nowadays here, and now we're in 2023, you can go out and get in a fight on the internet. But you couldn't accidentally get in on a fight in an internet. You could post something and say, you can post something provocative and somebody will comment on it here in the year 2023. But in the year 2020, you could just post anything and someone would fight you about it. It was a raw time. And I give thanks to the point that everybody's learned how to block. Everybody's learned how to unfriend. Everybody's learned how to hit the snooze button on the conversation. So to the point now, it's you can find a fight, but you can't stumble onto a fight like you could, almost 4 years
exactly
ago. So and there's times where I've seen a comment made and then I'm like, yeah, I don't like that dude, and like, and I just like, what you do is you'll scan through like, that's kind of an odd type statement to make on somebody's post. Let me hit their button and look on their profile. I'm like, whoa, yeah, this guy is pretty not cool. And like, I'm like, I'm just gonna like, I don't even know who this person is. I'm just gonna block him because I don't know. I'm never gonna meet this person. You know what? There's good things and bad things. The good thing about that is that you can make your place a safe environment. The bad thing is you've created your own echo chamber and you're unable to have conversations with people with differing views. So it's good and bad. But anyway, in 2020, where it was just a raw time, I wanted to make sure that I created my corner of the internet a safe place, safe place for everyone. It's like, so what I did is like, I would always occasionally post a dad joke once every few days or a couple weeks. But then, because I was mostly using Facebook as a place to be as a public-facing blog about gas prices or this or that. But now I decided, you know what? I'm not making social commentaries from now on. I'm just gonna make jokes. So what I did, I picked up the low-hanging fruits, Konrad. The real easy ones that you'll see that floating around, Twitter or Facebook or something. Those easy ones, posted those. But then I realized that if I'm posting a joke a day, I'm gonna quickly run out of. Easy. So I've been doing this now for almost 4 years, and I'm proud to say that I've never posted the same joke twice. So what I've been able to do, so what I've been able to do, there's a few things that makes my books unique. You can go to the store and buy any dad jokes. You can find dad jokes you can do a hashtag dad jokes and find ones that you can read. But what I love about my book, as Konrad, you talk comics. So what I'm able to do is like through my background is I've been able to actually first thing is like, it's a fully colored book. The book is full. It's the only dad joke books that's actually like fully colored. And the other thing that I do, it's pretty. So I framed it as putting on my cartoonist hat. So what I do is that I have there's 25 reoccurring frames, frames on this book. And all of them have a thing that somebody's dad would be doing. Like you got golf clubs, you got taking out the trash. But I have I have 2 daughters. They're 8 and 6. And one of the things that I make sure to do, there's no such thing as any gender specific chores in our home. There's nothing in there that actually involves work of this isn't a boy job and this isn't a girl job. Every job is anybody's job. So that's why I have on here one of the frames. I got laundry because I do the laundry in the house. Lawnmower. So that is one thing that I'm proud of the book. A broom. You know what? I sweep. And then there's like a campfire. People go camping. So that's one thing about the book itself, is that it actually is it's full color. The other thing about this book, Konrad, that I'm proud about is it is completely safe for anyone to read. So you can, if you look at any dad joke books, I was just on a show a couple of days ago where the host says, "Oh, I got a good joke," and he said this joke, and I'm like thinking, that's kind of racist. It's like so some people's version of joke is that, so this book here is there. If you buy a joke book, it'll either have something on there. Some jokes will be a little bit misogynistic. Some jokes will be a little bit racist. Some jokes will be detrimental to a certain ethnic group. There's some of their jokes that are just dirty, and some jokes too where you think, okay, this is a safe book because this book was produced by a public radio station. It's like, this must be safe. You open up, it's like they just made of an entire political party or made fun of an entire religion. Like, it's like, you're supposed. So what I love about my book is that it is completely safe for everyone. So it is. So on here, I got my 6-year-old takes this book to first grade, completely fine. There's no jokes in there. There's nothing in there that would be offensive to the teacher. Lets her keep the book. Yeah. My brother works at a stone quarry. He's hanging out with a bunch of other guys, having and sitting there, full of like stone dust and stuff like that, working with heavy machinery. He opens up, in his lunch pail, he actually has a copy of my book. Because the guys asked him, like, bring that book your brother made, So he'll read crack a few jokes on it, and they'll laugh and guffaw. My mother, Konrad, is a minister, a church minister. Oh, okay. She has a book at church, and it is completely safe. So here's the thing: it is safe for kids, grandparents. It's safe for it's safe even like men's men love the jokes as well. So that's the other thing about the book, that's a little different. The other thing about it, see, here's the thing, Konrad, there's other things about this book. So the other thing about this book is that there are also some jokes in here that I personally invented that you're not going to find anywhere else. Ooh. Well, no, it's not. I'm not a brilliant man. It's play on words. It's not like it's
absolutely. That's it, though, right?
And as I mentioned earlier, my wife is from Nigeria, and I got one joke in particular, which I am proud to say I invented, and I've seen in the wild a couple times already, which is really funny. So one of them was that, I was taking, pre-COVID era, I was actually taking my daughter to school one morning. And I said, before we went live, I was saying I'm from Vermont. So driving her to school, as I'm driving her to school, we see a deer cross the road, which is common enough where it's not like, wow, but it's rare enough where you say, that's pretty cool. So I dropped her off and I came back home and I told my wife, I said, you know what? I just saw a deer on the way to school today. And she looked at me straight faced and she goes, how do you know it was going to school? And I looked at her and I said, that's funny. Nice. So I actually as soon as she said that, I typed it on Facebook. I'm like, I saw a deer on the way to school today. I switched it up by saying, my daughter said she saw a deer, and I told her, how do you know I was going to school? And I've seen that joke in the wild a couple times, and it's so funny to know that that joke is something that I actually threw out there. And so the other thing too that I like to do, Konrad, in this book as well, is that I'm able to, I'm also able to take some jokes from I love old time radio programs. I love old timey radio programs like the old Jack Benny, George and Gracie Burns.
Okay, yeah.
Charlie McCarthy, all that stuff from the 30s and 40s. Some of that stuff is pure brilliance. And what I'm able to do is kind of bring some of those old jokes that the comedy writers wrote 80 years ago, dust them off, put a more of a modern sensibility on it, and to be able to do that. A good example of one that was an old Charlie McCarthy joke that he said is, and I tweaked it a bit because it's okay for self-depreciating humor is good in a joke book because the one that's reading it is able to make fun of themselves, but actually laugh with them by having people laugh at you, which is good. So this is an old Charlie McCarthy joke that I was able to tweak and update and edit and bring to the modern audiences. Here's this one right here, Konrad. It goes, I told my wife when I was in my 20s I was unbelievably handsome. She responded, "You're right. I don't believe it." So that yeah. So this is, I see myself as not an inventor of jokes, but a curator of a really good book that meets multiple audiences and is safe for anyone and everyone as well. So yeah,
like one thing, and again, I have to say thank you for sending it through to me so I could check it out and sort of prep myself for today. One thing that I absolutely love going through, because I got about halfway through the book, reading 2 or 3 jokes per page. The sheer level of wordplay and puns in this floored me. Like, I don't remember the whole joke now. I mean, I appreciate it's probably 2 lines, but one of them was like, what did the girl say to her, or what do you call it when siblings help each other? Well, they're a sister. And it's like, assisting, haha. I like that. Like, that kind of weird, quirky wordplay, I dig it, and this book is packed with them. I guess, Barney, what I want to ask is, given all this work you did for 15 years around the world, right, when did you have time, to do cartooning? And I guess, did humor play a key role or an important role for you during that time?
Yeah, so it helped out a lot because here's the thing is like meeting people, and you can appreciate this as well as that being a native English speaker, is when you go to other countries and you meet people who actually have English as a second language, you really start to appreciate what the double meanings of words. And here's one that I thought that was when I was in Zimbabwe. I've always been the kind of person who treats, the custodian the same way as the principal. Like, I treat everybody with the same level of respect and the same level of deference. And when I was, and here's something that's not in the book, so this is an exclusive, Konrad, that you just reminded me about it, is I was sitting in the jar when I was in Zimbabwe, and they speak English there. That's an English speaking country, but a lot of people will speak Shona, which is the language that the language that Zimbabweans speak there. That's their culture there, and is Shona. And so they'll speak English as a second language. So that'll be like their school language. And I was sitting in that, and I'm always the guy when working with expats, they'll get in the Land Cruiser and they'll sit in the back seat, because I'm in the expat. I'll sit in the back, and I'm always the one that sits in the front seat next to the driver, and they always look confused. I'm like, let's hanging out, just love it, and hang out. And I remember driving. Somebody said to me, it was one driver said to me, he goes, as we're driving, I was working medical logistics at the time, and and the driver said to me, he goes, Barney, why do you always sit in the front seat? And why do you always help us, unload bags and stuff like that and everything? I thought, you people, meaning like us expats, didn't do that stuff. And I looked at him, and his name was Peter. And I said, Peter, it's because I think of you as a peer. And he looked at me really confused, and he goes, well, yeah, we all pee. Like, he looked at me like,
Oh my god.
But it was like, so that's the joke. I don't really put it in the book, but it was one of those jokes where like like he looked at me. It was the same with my wife. We're like, of course, you like, you look at me as a peer, like we all pee. Like it was like, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, it's but so, I mean, that's not necessarily a dad joke. It's a play on words, but it was made with the intention of, you know, like true misunderstanding of the language. And that's what a lot of these play on words are, these puns, is like you said, like the assister thing. Like, you know, it's, what do you call a sibling? What do you call a sibling that helps you? And a sister. So
Thank
it's like
you,
that. Yes. So that's what it is. It's like a play on words, but I've learned a lot about that, of learning a lot about the art of language and the art of a lot of that too. Some of them I wouldn't say are more cerebral than others, but some of them you have to like, they don't translate well saying them. They're better read. So they're better actually reading it because they have a play on words in the written form.
Yeah.
Not in the verbal form. Where some of them actually are the opposite of that, where it doesn't make sense when you read it, but actually when you say it out loud is where it's actually, more funny that way too.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is so fascinating about like language in general, but specifically the cobbled together horrible language that is English. Basically, if anyone picks this book up and reads through it and reads something and goes, I don't get it. If you're reading it up here, say it and it'll click.
Right.
And it's just, you have packed this book with jokes. Like it's what, 147 or so pages, right?
Yeah. So it's over 500 jokes in there as well. So yeah. And then, with my Kickstarter, that went live today, it's Dadder Jokes is another 500 jokes. So, and with that in place, it's like, you can get, over 1,000 jokes that are, as I say, that are curated for the audience of people to know that. Because here's the thing, it's like if you ever buy a joke book for friends or family, and then you end up reading, oh, that's funny, and then some of them notice that their faces kind of get straight faced because there's going to be an offensive joke in there someplace. Yep. It's one of those things where all of a sudden it's like, as the givee, you feel as though that book represents your own like opinions on things, whether it be about politics, religion, or science. And so what I love about this book is that there's no insinuation or platform on anything that can make you think about it. So that's what I love about the book itself too.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people will maybe not cognitively or right off the bat think about, but the fact that you've curated these jokes in such a way that anyone can read this, anyone can pick this up, whether it's your 65-year-old mom, your nephew from down the block or whatever, and it's clean. They might not get all the jokes because maybe they're too young or whatever to understand the linguistic stuff, but like it's a funny book and it's super clean.
Right.
I guess my question is, because it would be very easy to lean into double entendre and allow it to get dirty. When you put these together, so there's dadder jokes, I'll bring it up again here. It's 500 more jokes. So that's 1,000 jokes total. When you're doing this and basically picking all the jokes, do you find it hard to filter out the crass ones, or is it just sort of first nature now that you've got 2 kids and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and also too, working in previously I also worked in like the nonprofit field as well, is that when you're surrounded by the point of and I don't like, I've never been a fan of the term politically correct, because it insinuates that you need, it insinuates that that you have a filter put onto you by outside sources. But I see it as a
interesting.
point of being, I see it as a point of being, it's like, what is culturally appropriate for somebody that is, it's good that you want to reach a wider audience. It's the same thing where like, when I was a teenager, I would say, I would say swear words with my friends, but for some reason something switched off and I went to see my grandmother. I didn't have the same vocabulary in front of my grandmother. So it's one of those things where like, I wanted to make something that was actually that it like you say, it's the second nature in the sense of, would I tell my grandmother this joke or would I tell my mother this joke? It's like, and here's the thing, it's like, and you say, well, they won't get it. Like there's a joke about Star Wars. There's a few jokes about Star Wars in there. It's like, but you can tell them that joke, they won't be offended by it. So that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Like it was like a really funny one. It was just that someone just told me the other day one. I'm going to try to find a way to tweak it a bit. Is like the, a stormtrooper and a red shirt Star Trek guy were standing next to the stormtrooper shot and missed, but the red shirt died anyway. Or there's something about that they told, but it was like
that is peak nerddom right there, and I love it.
Right.
Now I do want to once again show this here because I think it's important. We're here talking about dad jokes and dadder jokes. So the Kickstarter campaign's live. Like you said, it went live yesterday or today.
Just like 4 hours ago it went live. So
4 hours you've got in Canadian. So don't let the figures fool you. You're at 355 Canadian out of 945 Canadian. Roughly speaking, you're a third the way there already within 4 hours, which is fantastic. I've put the link in the comments, so whether someone's tuning in now or they're watching this sometime in the next 30 days when it's live on YouTube, they can go check it out. I guess as a dad, I gotta ask, like, not me myself, but you as being a father, what do your kids think of the books?
It's almost like it was like period. Daddy's in an interview. Yeah. It's literally not. It's almost like in Q. It's like Konrad, you like called and say, go knock on the door as soon as I bring up bring you up. They had. So here's what I love about. I actually told my daughters that she's 8 and the other one's 6, so she's gonna be 9 this Sunday. So they're young enough where I'm not even annoying them quite yet. So I got married late. So, and I actually told them, I said, I can't wait. I said, my goal as a dad is to embarrass you in front of your friends. Like, I just, it's out of love, but I just really want to be that guy. Like I really get them upset, like not upset, but they do their eye rolls because I always tell them every time I'm going outside, I always say, hey, daddy's going to the booger store. Do you know any boogers or something like that? And like, it's like stupid dad things to say to like a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's so I know there's going to be a point where they're just going to be that they roll their eyes already, but at like goofy things, but not at like the play on word stuff yet. But yeah. And I would like to talk to you also, Konrad, about some of like, so what's, and you're pulling it up here as we're looking at this, is that you do have on here, one of the things, much like you, I've done, I do a few podcasts as well. Yes, and one of them is, and one of them is like, I interview a lot of storytellers and artists as well. So what I do is that some of the ones I've been made connections with, I've reached out to them to say, hey, in a few months, I'm going to make my dadder jokes books. Do you want to do exclusive covers? So I have on here some exclusive variant covers that you're only going to get through the Kickstarter. Ooh. So yeah. And all of them are, so Brian Ballinger is an award-winning illustrator, muralist. He's done children's books as well. I have on here Dirk Stanley So Konrad, if you haven't had any of these guys on your show, here's a good opportunity. Dirk Stanley is actually a Renaissance man who's actually, he'll never tell you what college he works at, but he's actually like a tenured writing professor someplace.
Oh, wow.
And he has yeah. So he actually, he has, his pen name is Dirk Stanley, and he's made, he's self-published 10 role-playing games that he's actually illustrated and created. And it's called the Faraway Land is the name of the IP. And he's one of those guys that maybe sleeps 3 hours a night and just always sleeps hours a night. And is always up making stuff. And then I have Mark Gagne, who is actually a really well-known graphic artist who's actually done covers for DC and Marvel. And he's also has a children's book agent that he actually has through like Simon and Schuster. He's done children's books for that as well. And so I was able to have him come on as well and actually he's the one that did the Mark Gagne variant bundle. You see, his work is way different than anybody else's because he is a graphic designer by trade. So his books definitely have that. Like that looks like the book covers he did. It looks like a book you would find, a book cover you'd see in a bookstore.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I guess then the next obvious question I've got to ask about is your podcast. I mean, you've got a few different shows that you do, but as someone who I like to focus on Canadian creators, Canadian indie comic creators, that kind of stuff. Obviously, I'll interview pretty much anyone who's got a cool comic coming out. You kind of do a similar thing, but for your local area.
Right.
So I'm gonna pop that up. Tell us about your show a little bit.
So I have Story Comic Presents, and one of the things too, and it's the same for you, Konrad, as well, is like sometimes your stuff ends up evolving into creating an audience you weren't expecting. Yeah. And so for me, my masthead is Story Comic Presents, and it kind of started off with the idea of actually back pre-COVID, I actually was working on my own comic books at the time. So what I did is I reached out to some of my, comic book friends and say, hey, can I pick your brain about how Photoshop works or blah, 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 or this or that, or how to get this publishing stuff going on. And what does 300 DPI mean? Like all these things that, you're starting off asking. So I sat down and I talked to a couple of my friends, talked to them on Zoom for like an hour. And I said, I should be recording this. I should be recording this conversation. This has been so fun. And then what happened made me realize that, and you know this too, Konrad, there is so much talent out there that nobody knows about. So it's being able to give that voice to folks is extremely important. So then I started doing a show because my website's called Story Comics. So I did a podcast called Story Comic Presents, where I interview amazing storytellers and artists. So what happened was I started doing that. And then through algorithms or something along those lines, because I always do hashtag Vermont podcast on there. Okay. I had some hybrid book publishers reach out to me and say, hey, I have an author that's just put out a book. Can they come on your show? I'm like, I guess, sure. And so what happened was then I started interviewing Vermont authors and Vermont artists and stuff like that. Yeah. And then what happened was I also, having, as I say, I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old and a almost 3-year-old. I really love children's books. Children's books are a completely different creature. Anybody who's writing comic books or making long prose can say, writing a children, how hard that is. It's only 28 pages and it's only 500 words. Can't be that hard. It is the equivalent of telling somebody says, I know how to ride a bike. I'm sure flying a plane can't be that much more difficult. Yeah. Like, it's like, no, it's a completely different machine. Like, it is way different. So anybody who goes in there with the ego of thinking it's easy to write a children's book is going to be sorely, you can write a children's book. Is it going to be good? Probably not. Like, if you're going to make a good children's book, there is an art and skill set to that. so what I was able to do then is like, so
Mhm.
through that, I was then found children's book authors and artists that gonna. So then I created another, which is I have about 10 episodes in the can so far that I want to make sure I get a good buffer up. So I
Oh,
have,
okay.
so I have a third podcast called We Make Children's Books. And so I have the second one is Vermont Artists and Authors. And then I have a fourth podcast called Nerd Stock Talk, where I actually take, so one of the things also during COVID is I really took a deep dive in and learning a lot about investing and how important investing is. So what I was able to do is take investing and translated it into a language that other nerds like. So I'm a huge World of Warcraft fan. So I actually have the podcast Nerd Stock Talk, which is there, but I've been making some other series that are called From Azeroth to Wall Street, because I love World of Warcraft, about how do you invest like the class of your choice. And that's been super fun making those, like putting it into a language that people can kind of understand and see. And so that's the other show that I do as well. And which is really cool, Konrad, is like why it's called We Make Children's Book. You know, it's called Vermont Authors and Artists. I had a guy on my show, and you might know him. He's kind of Canadian. He's from Oregon, so which is, you know, knocking on Canada. And I'm from Vermont. So little known fact, Konrad.
Oh, okay.
Vermont almost became part of Canada. So yeah. So what happened was, after the revolution, after the Revolutionary War, there was 13 colonies. A lot of people don't realize that Vermont we were our own independent country for 14 years. After the Revolutionary War, yeah, we were our own independent country for 14 years. After the Revolutionary War, we went to the Continental Congress and said, "Hey, so everything's good. Can we join? Can we be a part of the United States?" They're like, "No, we're just going to stay 13 colonies. No, thanks a lot, Vermont, but we're cool." And then Vermont was like, "Okay, we'll join Canada." And then somebody who actually was who was smart enough to look at a map realized that if Vermont joined Canada, it would be basically a 40-mile horse ride to invade Boston. So they're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, no, yeah, you can join." So that's why we're the 14th state. As soon as Vermont joined, all of a sudden all these other colonies and, you know, all these other territories joined and became states. So that's why there's 13 colonies. We became the 14th state. So
Interesting.
that in a way, Konrad, is my long way of saying you do Canadian stuff, but I'm
Honorary
pretty much
Canadian.
okay. Honorary Canadian. Yeah, we have better maple syrup, but you know, we won't hold that against you. So.
Oh,
yes. So,
nice,
but you know
nice.
what? I do give you credit though. I took a vacation in Nova Scotia, and I got to tell you, I went to Nova Scotia. All I was gonna say is the maps lie to you, because you know what? The map showed from Vermont to Nova Scotia was only 3 inches. It took me 11 hours to travel, and at that time it was a 1-year-old, and a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old in a car for 11 hours. I do not recommend it. That was horrible. But anyway, so basically, I do give you credit. When I was there, when I was in Nova Scotia, when I was in Canada, and the Canadian border where I live in Vermont is only 30 minutes, a 30-minute drive. It's not that bad. So it's really close. Yeah. Right in Quebec. So, but I do say though, it's like I really got into the Timmies. All right, the Timmies. I love the Timmies. And somebody pointed out, says, "Do you realize though that McDonald's bought Tim Hortons, so it's the same exact coffee?" You know what? Don't care. It's the fact it's in that red container. You know what? It makes it so
Special.
delicious. It makes it special because it feels like I'm having something, you know, like from a different country. You know, it's like I'm drinking the exotic Canadian coffee of Timmy's, and there's a little hint of molasses to it. There's a little cinnamon. There's something about that tastes different, though.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's good.
Well, I have a question for you. So in Vermont, I'm assuming you're getting your Timmy's in Vermont. Is that correct? Because I know they have.
No.
Oh,
No,
so
they
you're
don't.
coming over the border. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
see? Yeah.
interestingly, I forget, like, regarding Timmy's and McDonald's coffee, I forget how long ago this was. So, timeline out the window. But I know at some point for us, like in Ontario, or at least in my area, when some company in the States bought Timmy's, the coffee that they were choosing to purchase, they changed it to be probably less expensive. And McDonald's actually picked up their contract or whatever. So in fact, people who love Timmy's coffee in Ontario, or at least Southern Ontario, if they go now and hit up McDonald's, that's the coffee you're getting. Weird little factoid for if you're in the area.
Okay, all right. So I love. And here, the other thing I love about Tim Hortons too. So I'm just gonna go into love fest about Timmy's right now. Timmy's has the best donuts in there. Was it that sour cream?
Ooh.
It's like the sour cream cruller glazed sour cream. I tell you, man, you can just you taste the diabetes on it. It's so delicious. Like, it is just, I mean, it is. I eat that thing and I'm like, oh, this is so good. Like, you just taste it and you're like, man, this is amazing. Like, I'm angry that I can't buy it here. Every time I'll go to Canada and I'll buy some of those clothes. And I'll buy. I'm like, I can't eat this anywhere. This is ridiculous. You know, I love this so much. I'm so mad that I can't buy it in my own country. And those things. If anybody that's visiting Timmy Hortons, go there. You got to get. It's like the sour cream glazed. Is that what it's called? Cruller or something like that?
That could be too. You're talking about the one where the actual dough is like twisted in a sort of a corkscrew, right?
But it's shaped as a donut, though.
Yes. Yeah. So that would be honey curler. Although there is the I think it's just called cream glaze, which is like a plain donut with, again, basically diabetes on it.
Yes.
And both of them are fantastic. Not that it's specific to Timmy's, but personally, my own favorite, I cannot get enough of the either apple fritters or the raisin fritters. I wouldn't say Timmy's is like the best or anything, but they're decent. But yeah, a honey curler is actually my partner's favorite donut too.
I looked it up. So I actually have to look. So it was, you have the maple dip, you have the sour cream plain.
Yep.
That's what that one is. The sour cream glazed. The honey cruller. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Yep. Looks like a corkscrew that's twisted it on itself. Yeah. No, man, that's sour cream. That's what it is. The sour cream glazed. I had that, man. That is amazing. But yeah, so it's like, here's another factor for all of your listeners out there. Here's something I learned about. Did you know, you probably know this, Konrad, Alberta has no rats. I didn't. They have no rats.
They have no rats in the entire province. No rats in the entire territory. Nothing.
Yeah. Okay, because they have ferrets?
No. It's a law. Like, any rat is so Alberta has no rats. Yeah. Alberta is a rat-free because of international efforts by the provincial government in the 1950s. The government was motivated by the past plagues and economic challenges caused by rats. So, yeah, see?
That's something.
I just said, look, I'm teaching you about your country. See, Konrad? Yeah, I bet you didn't know it's going to be this is going to be edutainment, did you? See?
I didn't. And give me just a second. Or did it load too? Let me put this up because this is hilarious. This is actually a poster for that.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the rat. He's a menace too. Health, home, and industry. Kill him. Let's keep Alberta rat free. Wow. Poor little guy.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
So, Bart, we've got a little off track from your book here. Not that I'm not enjoying it, but I flashed them up earlier. I'm gonna put them up again. But for the folks out there either tuning in live or tuning in later,
Right.
what's the best way for them to follow and support you?
Right. So great question, Konrad. See, this is the so what you can do. The easiest place to do is go to storycomic.com, and on there's a hyperlink. Right on the front, there's a button to click on the Dad or Jokes Kickstarter. And as I say, for those that are interested, this is probably the best place you can go to, as I say, get exclusive materials for this. And I'm already working on some other ideas of putting in some exclusive. I'll tell you the exclusive, Konrad. I already have some bookmarks, downloadable bookmarks that are going to be made that are going to have some jokes on it that are going to be exclusive too on there, and some of them look pretty, like with like fancy like fonts on it and stuff like that. That from a distance makes it look like it must be a Bible verse or something, but it's actually a dad joke about like a tree. But you know what? So those are also some of the things that that are gonna be available, that are gonna be unique to that you're gonna be able to get on there as well as add-ons. So yeah.
That's awesome. And regarding social media, where are you most active? Where can people check out your stuff? What would be the best way there?
So I'm most active. You can, definitely find me on MySpace. Check me out on Friendster. I'm on Friendster. Love Friendster. If you can't see me on Friendster or MySpace, please. I have a nice Lycos site, and GeoCities is where I'm at a lot.
Oh my god! Can we hit you up on MSN Messenger or maybe AOL?
Check me out on MSN Messenger as well. I have a good Yahoo group that you're going to
nice.
I put a lot of them there. I'm mostly at a lot of my. I have a Story Comic has the Facebook page. Story Comic is there. Also, I also have Instagram. Post a lot of stuff on Instagram. It's mostly for my podcast and the people I've interviewed and stuff on there a lot. And you know what? And also too, I got Blue Sky. I got Threads. I got those on there as well. And that's all that stuff. You can find me as that Story Comic on there too. And what else? Yeah, I don't check my Twitter account very much anymore. I've just kind of like given up on that one. It's like, what? And so it seems like a lot of the audience I had on Twitter kind of migrated to Threads anyway, because I've been more active on Instagram and Facebook as well. So a lot of that stuff is going to be through there too. So yeah.
All right. You know what?
And all of that is a Story Comic. Yeah.
Yeah. I happen actually I have, for the sake that I have an Instagram account, I've created a Threads account. I haven't used it. I keep getting those notifications where it's like, so-and-so and 99 other people have followed you on Threads. And I'm like, cool. What's the deal with that? Is it just basically Instagram, but a little more like Twitter? Or?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So this is my impression, because I listen to a lot of these business and like technology and industry podcasts.
Yeah.
What happened is that Meta wanted to jump on the fact that Twitter is a dumpster fire right now. So what they decided to do is say, you know what? And I'm sure people said, Zuckerberg, Threads isn't ready yet. We don't have an ability to have it's not desktop relatable yet. You can't do the hashtags yet. And he said, you know what? He's basically building the plane as it's flying. He's like, just put it out there for now. I guarantee it's going to sugar out to the point where it's going to end up being, it's kind of like Final Fantasy, the MMO. They had to relaunch it again because they didn't do it too well the first time, and now it's doing fine. So it's one of those things where it's just the longevity of it, I think, is going to be good. I believe is going to be good. Blue Sky is taking a much more measured approach. Blue Sky is doing beta keys. Blue Sky is... I believe what's going to happen is that you're going to end up seeing Blue Sky being the spiritual successor to Twitter, and you're going to end up seeing Threads being the convenience piece where, because you can simultaneously share that stuff on your Facebook page, your Instagram, and your threads. That's going to make it, for convenience, people are going to be utilizing that. People haven't, it's all about habit. It's about, it takes them out to form habits on that. And also too, the point of it too is that you'll see a lot of people, generationally speaking, stay with, somebody brought up, they said, Facebook is just full of old people now. I mean, it's like, and my response is like, no, the people that were on it 20 years ago never left. I mean, that's basically what
we've
happened.
just gotten older.
You just gotten older. So it's, they said something, there was like a little trivia. Yeah. And so people don't want to be on their parents' platform. So that's the reason why you see people not, TikTok is another thing. You're going to start seeing TikTok, give it another 10 years. Someone else is going to be on something else. And then TikTok is going to be where all the old people are, because all the people that are 17 are now going to be in their 30s in 10 years. So it's that's the evolution. And here's the thing too, Konrad, is that a lot of people struggle talking about comics specifically. Here's the thing. If I'm going to give any wit and wisdom for anybody out there, and I've learned this by interviewing a lot of people, is comic books are a medium, not a genre. So what I mean by that is that if you're making a horror comic book, don't advertise it to other people who read comics. Go to the horror people and sell your comic. Yes. If you're making a Western comic, don't sell that to other comic book people. Sell that to people that like Westerns. So that's what it comes down to, is like we all, as ourselves as podcast hosts, we provide a service for people to give them some level of understanding of the medium, and then also being able to really highlight the fact that, here's the thing. Oh, I made a fantasy comic. Have you talked to like the D&D folks about it? I bet they would love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, people talk about, what about superhero comics? If I'm going to do things about superhero comics, who do I talk to? It's like, you know what? Here's what you need to do. And this is what I recommended. Go to your local movie theater. The next time they're having, don't go to like a chain movie theater. Go to the local movie theater and say, hey, I make superhero comics. When you have that next Marvel release movie, can I set up a table and show that I'm a local comic book person? I have comic books. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. So that's what you need to go, where people like superheroes. And it's not always comic books. So that's where you need to go, is find the audience. You've already created an IP for that. That IP is not comic book. That IP is fantasy, sci-fi, things like that. Go to where those people are. Don't go to the comic book people. Comic book people like to support other comic book people with advice and say, God, you're doing a great job. But if you go to other comic books, like, buy my comic book, that other comic book is like, okay, then buy my comic book. And they're like, no, wait, no, that's not how it works. So that's the piece that's really important, to make sure that you reach out to other people who actually like the genre. Comic books are a medium, not a genre. So, yeah.
I have never heard that so elegantly put. Comic books are not a medium, or are not a genre, they're a medium. It's true. It's actually come up a lot of times on my show where people are like, why do you like comics? And I'm like, well, it's, in my opinion, the best storytelling medium that we have, period. Yeah, I don't know. I just, that's damn profound. Thank you for that, Barney. I dig it. We are actually coming to the end of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes left. So I normally close out my interviews with the same sort of 2 questions, which I feel like with you is going to be a really cool answer. So one of those questions I always like to ask,
you just built it up, and now if it's not cool, I'm just going to feel so bad now.
I will be shocked if it's not. So, but my second last question is, what are you currently reading or enjoying, whether it's an audiobook, a comic book, prose, like whatever? What is that thing that right now you're enthralled with?
You know what? Here it is, and this is going to be this might not be the answer you're expecting. Bluey. Okay, so if you haven't watched the cartoon Bluey, oh my goodness, I man cry every time I watch one episode of Bluey because it is basically it's the last 5 minutes of Dead Poet Society. It's the last 15 minutes of Iron Giant. It's the first 5 minutes of Up. Like it's all that stuff where you're watching and you're like, how did they do that? Like it's amazing. Like you watch it, I'm just like crying about this. Like, so if anybody's thinking like, what's Bluey? This is what you need to do. Go on, just go ahead and Bing this. All right, just go ahead and Bing. Just go ahead and Bing.
I'll go ask Jeeves.
Top five best Bluey cartoons for adults. You can watch them they're on YouTube. They're on Disney Plus. There's some amazingly like profound cartoons that are for like 5-year-olds and like 3-year-olds, but you're watching it as an adult, like we are all mortal. Like you're just watching it, like, it's like, oh my god,
that's so interesting because I haven't actually watched the show myself, which I really do need to go and do. But so many, my social media, Bluey keeps popping up. A lot of my friends that are into what I'm into, they've mentioned it. And it's like, the more I hear about this, I'm like, why is this a kids show? Like, I feel like they're using a kids show as more a medium to get you watching than actually delivering content for. Like, are these shows, do kids get it? When they watch this stuff, do they actually feel it, or are they like lost on, oh, the pretty blue dog? Like, because what it is, it's basically, it's like Rick and Morty is an adult cartoon for adults. Yeah.
Bluey is a children's cartoon that has a very basic, it has a layered message. And the layered message is that you're not going to see that the kids aren't going to get it. They just see having fun and teaching manners. But like a really one good episode, and some of them almost are theatrical in the sense they're actually framed like being on a stage almost. Okay. And this one whole thing, there's one episode, and the thing is too, Connor, they're like 10 minutes long. They're not even long at all. So yeah, so they're super short. And one episode was, and you can relate to it as, you know, anybody's coming from a large family. It's just the one little dog that the younger sister, I think she's like 3 or 4. She's trying to show somebody a trick she learned. She's trying to do a somersault. And people are, and it's during a party where everybody's setting up for the party, where you see in the background, oh, the turkey's ready, walking up there, and people and other kids are running through it and back and forth. It's framed like almost a skit in that sense, because it's only every one place. And during that same time, there's a grandmother. The grandmother is saying, "Do you need help with this?" "No, Grandma, we gotta just sit down." Go in there, and all these two events are happening simultaneously, where there's a little girl is trying to show how she's doing a somersault. And people are like, "Oh, yeah, good job." And they're not even watching. And she said, "Can someone watch me do my somersault?" I'm like, no. And on the other side, the grandmother is like, "Can I help you with the chicken?" "No, we got it, Grandma. Just sit down. You're fine. You're fine. Take it, take a load off." And at the end of it, it's one of those things where like the two stories converge, where the girl was trying to do it. She finally got her somersault down, and she looked at it and nobody saw her. She starts to cry. And the grandmother goes, "Good job. I saw you do it the entire time." And you're like, oh my God. Like, it was like thing where like they found who needed who at that moment. You know? It was like, as you're watching, I'm like, who wrote this? This is a brilliant, like, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, and it's all those things. It's like, all those episodes are so like, not all of them are gold, but some of them are like, you're watching them that it's a play on like, just like, the human condition, but in a way where you're thinking like, wow, this is good. You go Australia. They're from Australia too. So yeah, but yeah. So how was that answer, Konrad?
Perfect. No, that was absolutely perfect. Because it's, like I said, it's one of those things that keeps coming up for me. And it's like, do I really want to watch a kid's show? But like knowing it's 10 minutes and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, I'll go tonight. I'll fire up an episode and I'll check it out. So, Barney, my last question for you, I hope it's easy, is simply, who do you think I should interview next?
who you should interview next, I can give you an answer for that one. So if you go to storycomic.com, there is, I have, basically what I do is I have a button called friend of the show. When I've had someone be on my show 3 times, they become friend of the show. I give them a PNG badge. So I can highly recommend, first and foremost, everybody that's on that friend of the show is great to talk to. Some of the, and it's a melange of people too. So I have, there's people that are authors. There's also comic book folks. There's game designers. There is, so like for instance, like Tony McMillan. Tony McMillan is amazing. He is a Renaissance man of work. He actually created this comic book called Attaboy, which basically is the whole premise of this book is he says, I remember playing this Nintendo game and when I was young, and nobody remembers this, but I really remember playing this video game. So I can't find this video game where it exists. So he recreated the instruction manual and he made it. And he says, does anybody remember this? Does anybody remember this game? And people are like, I don't know. I don't remember this game. And so he made this, but of course, that's just the meta plot of us thinking like the Blair Witch Project kind of thing. Yeah. He knows the game never existed, but he made the whole story behind it is that.
That's cool.
Amy Lawrence is an author from Australia, and she brought up something amazing where I asked her about AI. I'm like, what do you think about AI? Because it's like the hot topic now. And she said something really poignant. She said that she says, AI is only going to be mediocre. There's only limited amount of room for mediocre, but there's unlimited room for great works. AI is never going to make great works. They're only going to make mediocre works. So she has, as an author, she has no concerns about that. But everybody else, like I said, yeah, I won't go through the whole list because there's a lot of them on there. All of those people I fully endorse on coming on your show. Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I mean, truth be told, I've gone through Lori Calcaterra, Andre Owens, you've got Caleb Palmquist, and I think that might be all of the guests you've had multiple times that I've also had.
Right.
But good to know. Yeah, I'll definitely go through. I'll check out the list. I'll pick someone out and I'll reach out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, in that case, Barney, absolutely, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
You're welcome, Konrad. Thanks for having me come on. I had a great time chatting with you.
For sure. And for the folks out there in YouTube land, updating soon will be the first link down below. We'll take you to the Kickstarter. It is in the comments section of the video, so go there now. Support the book. Get 500 more dad jokes, and go get the first one. I believe it's all $5 American bucks. We'll get you the second one digitally. If you wanted a print copy, there's a variety of options, which are awesome. Comment down below what you thought of Barney, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Adios.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns.